Dear students, so we will continue the fourth lecture video of module 1. So in this one, the new chapter which we are going to study, that is the second chapter in your textbook, that is called IoT Network Architecture and Design. So under this chapter, 5 topics we have to study, that drivers behind new network architectures, comparing IoT architectures or simplified IoT architectures, the core IoT functional stack, and IoT data management and compute stack. So here, uh, so what are the deriving factors for the new IoT architectures? That's the first point we are going to discuss it. So, see, so in the current IT architecture, so much challenges were there. To address these challenges, that new network architecture, that is called IoT architecture, is introduced. So these challenges are the main factors, or are called main drivers for the new network architecture. For example, let us see, the first challenge is the scale. So since in day by day, uh, more and more devices are getting connected with the internet, or like the massive scale of IoT endpoints like sensors is far beyond that of the typical IT network. So the more and more uh, sensors, objects, things are getting connected with the internet. So it's become very difficult or next to impossible for IT network to handle it. So why? Because for each things one address need to be given. But using the IPv4, the address under IPv4 is exhausted, but billions and billions of things are getting connected with the internet. So to provide those things, we the new network which supports the IPv6 Internet Protocol version 6, it is introduced. So this scalability is one driver point, uh, which is uh, because of which this IoT new network architecture is introduced. Because using uh, these, the more and more things are getting connected with the internet. Next, the challenge, or it is called the driver for the new network architecture, is the security. Since more and more devices are getting connected with the internet, so there will be security challenge. IoT devices, especially those on wireless sensor networks, are often physically exposed to the world. So once they are physically exposed to the world, there is a chance for the security breach. So here, when the more and more things gets connected with the internet and or are exposed with the physical world through the internet, so there is a chance for any intruder to hack any system and access the data. So here the security is So security is required at every level of the IoT network. Every IoT endpoint node on the network must be part of the overall security strategy and must support device level authentication and link encryption. So security is the major driver point for the new network architecture. Devices and network constrained by power, CPU, memory and link speed. So this is another driver factor for the new network architecture, that is IoT architecture, because nowadays so many devices are getting connected with the internet. Some devices are constrained with the uh, power bank, CPU, memory and link and speed. So due to the massive scale and longer distances, the networks are often constrained, lossy and capable of supporting only minimal data rates. So the IoT architecture changes required new last mile wireless technology are needed to support constrained IoT devices over long distance. So since IoT supports the wireless technology, so this is where IoT is introduced. The network is also constant, that is modifications need to be made to the traditional network layer transport mechanism. Another driving factor, the massive volume of the data generated. So that is the big data. This is another challenge. It is called the driver factor for the IoT architecture. So since we know that uh, uh, nowadays the sensor generates the massive amount of data on daily basis, causing network bottlenecks and slow analytics in the cloud. So in the IoT architecture, more and more sensors are connected with the internet, which is the biggest or massive data generator. So to handle those data, we need a new network architecture, that is called the IoT architecture. Data analytics capabilities need to be distributed throughout the IoT network from the edge of the cloud. The traditional IoT network analytics and application typically run only in the cloud. So a traditional IT architecture is not capable to handle the massive amount of data generated by the sensors. Support for the legacy system. An IoT network often comprises a collection of modern IP capable endpoints as well as legacy non-IP devices that rely on the serial or priority protocol. So all the IoT networks, they comprise modern IP capable points as well as legacy non-IP devices that rely on serial and priority protocols. So digital transformation is a long process that may take many years, and IoT networks need to support translation and or tunneling mechanism to support legacy protocols over a standard-based protocol such as Internet and IP. Next challenge or driving factor is the need for the data to be analyzed in real time. So nowadays, the more easy now day by day, it is becoming more easier to generate the data. So huge amount of data in the form of data bytes data are getting generated every day, every hours. So those data need to be analyzed. So the traditional IT networks are not sufficient to analyze the huge amount of data generated by in real time. But that's why we need a new IoT architecture or computer network architecture